My name is Odette Ravenswood, and for most of my life, I've been treated like the family's unfinished draft, something that should have been edited out long ago. My father never yelled. He didn't have to. His silence carried judgment sharper than any insult. Every accomplishment I brought home, every certificate, every commendation, was met with the same cold smile. Don't get ahead of yourself, Odette. He built a world where my brother's pride was a legacy, and my silence was proof of guilt. So I learned to live quietly, to serve quietly, to survive quietly, until the day silence became the very weapon that saved me. I never wanted to fight my family, but when they called me a liar in front of a federal court, they left me no choice but to let the truth speak for itself. The sound of his palm slamming against the table cracked through the courtroom like a rifle shot. "Your Honor, she forged her medals. She's a fraud." Mr. Talbot's voice echoed off the paneled walls, steady and sharp, meant to wound. My father sat beside him, Richard Ravenswood, hands folded, expression carved from stone. He didn't look at me, not directly. He didn't need to. The small curl at the corner of his mouth said enough. This was the moment he'd been waiting for. The air inside the federal courtroom in Denver felt too thin to breathe. White light poured from overhead fixtures, gleaming off the polished oak tables, the flag standing proud behind the judge's bench. Every gaze was fixed on me. Spectators, jurors, the clerk, each waiting for the woman accused of deceiving her own family, to break, to deny, to beg. But I didn't move. Years of command had taught me how to stand still while the storm raged. My pulse slowed, steady as the ticking clock on the wall. I could feel the weight of my father's eyes pressing against my back, his silence louder than any verdict. Then, from the bench, a faint sound, the creak of a chair. Judge Harrison was rising slowly to his feet. His posture straightened, shoulders squared, eyes fixed on me with something unreadable, recognition, maybe disbelief. Then his hand came up in one clean, deliberate motion, fingers aligned, palm sharp against his brow, a salute. "Major Ravenswood," he said, voice rough with something that wasn't anger. "I once reviewed your mission report." The courtroom froze. Even Talbot fell silent, his confidence draining from his face. My father turned toward the judge, confusion breaking through the mask of superiority. I met the judge's eyes for only a moment. The salute hung in the air between us, one man's acknowledgement of something no one else in the room could understand. And in that silence, I felt the past stir. It started 6 months ago, with a letter that changed everything. 6 months before that courtroom, I got a letter from my father. "Be in Denver on the 15th for your grandfather's will reading." No greeting, no warmth. Just an order, as always. I almost threw it away. But duty has a strange pull, even when it hurts. Snow followed me north to Denver, coating the windshield like frost on old glass. By the time I walked into the conference room, the air already smelled of tension and polished ambition. Model aircraft hung from the ceiling, the ghosts of my grandfather's legacy watching us. The lawyer's voice echoed, "The controlling interest in Ravenswood Aerodynamics is hereby bequeathed to my granddaughter, Odette Ravenswood." Silence broke into chaos. My father shot up, shouting, "You poisoned him with lies about your fake career." Evelyn's voice cut through his. "She was dismissed, Richard, for misconduct." Caleb smirked. "Guess pretending to be a hero pays off." I met my father's eyes. "If you believe that, go ahead and prove it." He froze, then hissed, "I'll see you in court." Evelyn smiled like victory. I just turned and walked out into the falling snow, realizing this wasn't about money, it was about control. The Blue Room, Offutt Air Force Base, a chamber of screens glowing cold blue, the hum of machines louder than breath. That's where it happened. We'd been tracing a breach in the UAV command system when I found the truth. The accused traitor was a man being blackmailed, his family marked for death. If he was exposed, hundreds would die. So I rewrote the report, made it look like my team failed, and took the blame. The official record read, "Failure to secure classified data." Days later, Colonel Reese Bennett handed me a folded flag. "You'll never get a parade," he said, "but you'll know." I carried that flag out of the base, feeling the weight of silence heavier than any uniform. That night, I locked it away like a coffin for my name. "Someday, someone will understand," Bennett had said. I just stopped hoping that person would be my father. The dinner table in Boulder looked like a photograph from a magazine. Silver polished, candles flickering, everything staged to hide what it really was. The air smelled of money and rot. My father sat at the head, Caleb to his right, Evelyn beside him, sipping her wine as if the room weren't already thick with hostility. Richard began smoothly, almost like a businessman closing a deal. "If you sign over your shares to Caleb, I'll withdraw the lawsuit. I can make this disappear." I didn't look at him. My eyes stayed on the portrait of my grandfather hanging behind him, the one man in that house who'd ever seen me as more than a disappointment. "You can't make something disappear," I said quietly. "If it was never a lie." Evelyn's tone was honeyed poison. "We're trying to protect you, darling. From embarrassment. From the truth coming out." Caleb leaned back, smirking. Or maybe she's afraid of what's in that file. I let the silence stretch. Then I said, softly but sharp enough to cut through the room, "You all want control so badly, you'll burn the house just to prove who owns the ashes." My father's temper snapped. The table rattled as his hand slammed down. "You were dismissed in disgrace. I read it myself." "You read what they let you read," I replied. Wine spilled across the tablecloth, deep red spreading like blood. Caleb laughed under his breath. "Still hiding behind that classified excuse? Convenient." I rose, calm as the eye of the storm, and took a sealed envelope from my coat. The wax seal gleamed under the candlelight. "Here's my official record request, filed by your lawyer, Mr. Talbot. You'll get your wish. Dad." He stared at the envelope as if it were a weapon. "You're not fighting for truth," he spat. "You're fighting to humiliate me." "No, Dad," I said. "I'm fighting to stop you from humiliating what's left of us." When I left, the snow outside had begun to fall again. In the rearview mirror, the house glowed like a shrine built for pride, not family. I drove into the night, the engine humming steady, my heartbeat matching its rhythm. The war had officially begun. Jared Linton's office in Colorado Springs was made of glass and light. Modern, sterile. Nothing like the family home I'd just escaped. Files piled high on his desk, each one another reminder of how messy truth could get. He leaned forward, voice low. "If we comply with their request, they'll see your discharge report. You could lose everything." I didn't blink. "Then we make them read it the right way." He frowned as I dictated my next move. The records would be sent in camera, directly to the judge. No copies, no leaks, a closed battlefield, the kind I knew how to win. While Jared typed, I searched the case file and paused at the judge's name. Harrison. My pulse tightened. Bagram Air Base. JAG officer. The same place where my classified report from Operation Aurora Vault had been reviewed years ago. I looked closer, scrolling through old commendation approvals. There it was, his signature, dated the month my mission ended. "He won't remember my name," I murmured. "But he'll recognize the mission." For a moment, the room blurred into the glow of blue light and code again. I heard my team's voices, the static of lost connection. "We're losing uplink!" "Lose it," I'd ordered. "It's the only way to keep them alive." I shook the memory off and picked up my phone. One last call to make. Naomi Clark answered on the second ring, her voice steady but guarded. "You know I can't testify. Odette. It's still classified." "I'm not asking you to tell them what happened," I said. "I'm asking you to remind them who we were." A long pause. Then, quietly, "Then I'll be there." When the line went dead, I felt the shift inside me. the same calm that came before every mission. This wasn't about surviving my father anymore. It was about finishing the operation he could never understand. Morning light spilled across the Denver courtroom, pale and sharp, catching the flag behind the bench. My father sat poised, pretending calm. Caleb crossed his arms like he'd already won. Evelyn smiled the kind of smile meant to sting. Talbot rose, voice slicing through the air. Your Honor, the defendant falsified her military record. She forged a medal and used it to manipulate her grandfather's will. I stayed still, hands flat on the table, eyes forward, no defense, no flinch. Silence was its own kind of weapon. He called Naomi Clark to the stand. His tone dripped condescension. You served under Ms. Ravenswood, correct? Tell the court, reckless or arrogant? Naomi straightened, calm as ever. Calm, analytical. She saved lives without being seen. The room froze. Talbot smirked, pressing harder. Saved lives? Or endangered them by breaking protocol? Naomi's voice cut through his smirk. Her silence wasn't shame. It was service. The words hit like a detonation. Judge Harrison frowned, recognition flickering behind his eyes. He tapped the file in front of him, then said flatly, Enough. The court will review the classified material in private. The heavy doors shut with a hollow boom. Inside, under the sealed Department of Defense, eyes only. Harrison flipped through pages until one line stopped him cold. Operation Aurora Vault. He leaned back, whispering to himself, I've seen this before. Outside the chamber, the world waited. But for me, the real verdict had already begun to turn. The hallway outside the courtroom smelled faintly of dust and tension. Through the frosted glass, I watched Judge Harrison reading in silence. My reflection ghosted beside his. Jared leaned close. If he finds anything redacted, he might close the case. Then he'll know exactly why I had to be silent, I said. When the doors opened, Harrison's face was unreadable. Everyone back inside. Yao Talbot sprang up instantly. Your Honor, we demand full disclosure. Sit down, counselor. The judge turned to me. Major Ravenswood, stand. The title cracked through the air like thunder. The room went still. He read from the declassified page, voice measured and heavy. For acts of extraordinary valor during Operation Aurora Vault, Major Odette Ravenswood is hereby awarded the Air Force Cross. The silence that followed was absolute. Evelyn's glass shattered. Caleb took a step back. My father's color drained away. Then Harrison rose to his feet, posture straight, hand lifting to his brow. It's an honor to stand before you again, Major. I reviewed your commendation myself. The light caught the silver edge of the medal in my hand. He set down the papers and spoke one last time. This court dismisses the claim with prejudice, and, for the record, the only fraud here is the accusation itself. I turned toward my father. His mouth opened, but no words came. For once, his silence belonged to him, not me. The gavel struck once, sharp as a gunshot. Then silence followed. Judge Harrison stepped down from the bench. The echo of his shoes measured, deliberate. The light from the flag behind him framed his silhouette as he crossed the courtroom floor. Every breath in the room seemed to stop. He paused in front of me, straightened his collar, and lifted his right hand to his brow. It's an honor to stand before you again, Major Ravenswood. Gasps broke the stillness. Evelyn's hand flew to her mouth. Caleb's confidence drained from his face. And my father, Richard, simply froze. The man who had dragged me here to humiliate me couldn't even find his voice. I rose, my spine steady, returning the salute, slow, exact, every movement crisp with the precision I'd been trained to keep. My eyes burned, but no tears fell. Permission to be dismissed, Your Honor. Harrison's faint smile softened his lined face. Granted, with distinction. He turned, lifted the gavel, and brought it down one last time. Case dismissed with prejudice. The sound rippled through the air. Final. Absolute. He hadn't just cleared my name. He had restored the honor they'd tried to bury. As I gathered my things, I glanced at my father, his head bowed, lips trembling without a word. You wanted to win a case. I thought. I needed to win myself back. Outside. Naomi waited in the hall. No congratulations, no speeches, just a firm handshake between two soldiers. You did what we always trained to do, she said quietly. Finish the mission. The silence that followed was pure, the kind earned, not given. A year later, the hallways of Ravenswood Aerodynamics no longer echoed with the weight of old power. They were open now, bright with natural light streaming through the glass walls, alive with the sound of new voices. The company name had been restored on the lobby wall, but beneath it gleamed a new inscription. For the Silent Guardians. I passed beneath it, watching engineers and researchers move through the space with quiet purpose. No more silk ties or hollow small talk. These were people who built things that mattered. Veterans who understood silence. Young minds from MIT who believed in precision more than politics. In the conference room, the air hummed with energy. On the screen, a flight simulation ran. A prototype of our new civilian UAV guidance system, developed in collaboration with NASA. Naomi Clark, now head of cybersecurity, leaned over the table, pointing at the code lines scrolling by. We don't need medals, she joked. Just working code. Laughter rippled through the room, soft, genuine, the kind that only comes from peace hard-earned. For a moment, I let it wash over me, the sound of a company finally breathing again. When the meeting ended, I lingered behind, walking to the wall where a black and white photograph hung. My grandfather, Walter Ravenswood, stood beside one of his first aircraft prototypes, flight goggles in hand, wind pushing at his coat. His eyes held the same clarity I remembered. I touched the frame lightly. We took your dream, I whispered, and gave it wings again. At my desk, I opened the bottom drawer. Inside lay the folded flag Colonel Bennett had handed me the day I left the service, its edges still sharp, the blue deep as the sky outside. I ran my fingers along the seam, feeling the fabric soften beneath my touch. It's finally home, sir. The sunlight caught the edge of the flag, the stars glimmering faintly. Outside, a test drone lifted into the air, its hum steady, its path true. For the first time in years, so was mine. Winter had wrapped Colorado Springs in white. From my apartment on the hill, the city looked muted beneath the snow, streetlights glowing through the haze like distant stars. I sat at my desk, the hum of the heater soft against the stillness, when my laptop chimed, ping, an email. The sender's name stopped me cold, Richard Ravenswood. I hesitated before opening it. My father's words filled the screen, sharp and uneven, as if written with a shaking hand. I didn't know. I thought I was protecting our name. I just wanted people to respect us. I stared at the message, reading it once, then again. There was no anger left to summon, no triumph to feel, only a quiet understanding that came with distance and time. I typed slowly, letting each word fall where it belonged. You protected the name. I protected what it meant. Then I clicked archive, not delete, just set it aside, where it could rest without haunting either of us. For a long moment, I stayed still. The apartment was silent, except for the faint whistle of wind pressing against the glass. I reached for the small wooden box on the shelf and opened it. The Air Force Cross inside caught the silver of the moonlight, gleaming like a heartbeat. Stepping out onto the balcony, the cold bit through my sweater, clean and sharp. The Rocky Mountains stretched in the distance, their peaks glowing faintly beneath the stars. Above them, the night sky seemed endless, quiet, vast. The same silence I'd once mistaken for isolation, now something else entirely. I held the metal up to the light, its surface cool against my palm. People chase noise to prove they've survived, but survival, I'd learned, sometimes sounds like nothing at all. As the snow fell in slow, deliberate spirals, I breathed out, the words leaving me in a whisper. People think silence means surrender. For me, it's the sound of peace. And with that, I let the stillness settle, not as an ending, but as the calm that finally, after everything, felt earned, 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 felt earned.